Diao Aiqing's name is etched into one of China's most disturbing and perplexing criminal cases, not only because of the brutal nature of the crime, but because it remains unresolved decades later. In a country where social order and conformity are cultural pillars, the grotesque dismemberment of a young university student remains a chilling aberration, a ghost story made real, a tale that haunts the conscience of a nation. Born in 1977 in a modest village in Jiangsu province, Diao Aiqing was the hope of her family. Like many others from rural China, her family saw education as the ultimate path out of hardship. Diao was a quiet, intelligent girl, respectful and diligent. Her aspirations were simple, but full of promise. She wanted to study law and make a difference in a world she thought was fair and rational. Her journey led her to Nanjing University, one of China's most prestigious institutions, and for a girl from the countryside, this was not just a personal achievement, it was a communal victory in her family's eyes. She was destined for a better life, but fate or something far more sinister had other plans. In January 1996, during the dead of winter, Nanjing was cold, quiet, and blanketed in mist. The city was preparing to welcome the Lunar New Year. Diao Aiqing, just 19 years old, had recently returned to campus after a brief winter break. On the evening of January 10th, she got into a minor disagreement with her university dormitory supervisor. Details about this argument remain vague even today, but it reportedly involved her breaking curfew. Upset and possibly embarrassed, Diao left her dorm building, never to return. What followed was not just a disappearance, but a descent into a horror story that no one in China could have predicted. Several days later, on January 19th, a local resident discovered a severed body part floating in the Qinghai River. What at first appeared to be a gruesome accident quickly escalated into something far darker when more body parts began surfacing in various locations throughout the city. Over the span of a week, over 2,000 pieces of dismembered human remains were recovered, meticulously cut and cleaned, and horrifyingly precise in their presentation. It took little time for investigators to identify the victim as Diao Aiqing. Dental records and later fingerprint analysis confirmed the horrifying truth. The innocent 19-year-old student, full of dreams and potential, had been brutally murdered and dismembered in a way that defied logic. Her body had been systematically cut into pieces many smaller than a matchbox. The sheer surgical precision led authorities and forensic experts to believe that the killer had a background in medicine or butchery. The cuts were clean, calculated, and cold. The questions began piling up faster than answers could be found. Why would anyone do this to a university student with no known enemies? Why the excessive mutilation? What kind of person would spend hours, possibly days, carving up a young woman's body with such deliberate control? The forensic findings were as bizarre as they were terrifying. There were no signs of sexual assault. There were no drugs in her system. There were no signs of defensive wounds, which indicated that Diao might have been killed quickly, possibly rendered unconscious before being murdered. But perhaps most haunting of all, her internal organs had been cleaned and preserved separately. This was not the act of an impulsive killer. This was methodical. This was ritualistic. In the days that followed, panic swept through Nanjing. The university was under intense scrutiny. Parents across the country began calling for increased safety on campuses. For the first time, many in China realized that even elite educational institutions could not protect their children from real-world nightmares. Police interviewed over 100,000 people. They tested DNA, tracked down suspects, and followed countless leads. Over 2,500 individuals were considered possible suspects, but no one was arrested. No one was charged, and just like that, the case began to grow cold. As the years passed, theories blossomed like weeds in a garden of doubt. Some believed that a mentally ill medical student had committed the murder as part of a deranged experiment. Others suggested that Diao may have witnessed something she shouldn't have, possibly involving organized crime or political secrets, and was silenced in a gruesome cover-up. Another theory involved an underground organ trade ring, though this was largely dismissed due to the careful and non-commercial nature of how her body was handled. Then there was the theory that perhaps the crime was symbolic, that Diao represented something to her killer. The dismemberment was not about destruction, but about ownership, control, or even a form of dark devotion. The psychological profile created by unofficial analysts suggested the killer may have had an obsessive attachment to Diao, potentially someone she had contact with on campus, a classmate, a staff member, even a guard. But despite detailed psychological evaluations, no evidence ever led to a viable suspect. In 2008, a glimmer of hope emerged when DNA analysis technology had advanced enough to re-examine the body parts. The Chinese authorities hoped that new testing could lead to a match in their criminal databases, but once again, nothing was found. The killer had either never committed another crime, never been caught, or was hiding behind a mask of normalcy. There are haunting aspects of the case that remain unnerving. The organs being cleaned, was it a sign of respect or perversion? The lack of sexual violence, was it an anomaly, or did it mean something deeper? The massive scale of the body parts, did the killer intend for the remains to be found? Or was he taunting the police? Was this a message, and if so, to whom? The Diao Aiqing case stands out not just for the brutality of the crime, but for its total lack of resolution. It remains a rare enigma in Chinese criminal history, a case that rattled the public psyche, yet has no satisfying conclusion. In a society where social harmony is a prized ideal, the idea that a monster could walk unseen among the population for decades is a terror too great to fully comprehend. Over the years, Diao's family has lived with unimaginable grief. Her parents, once filled with pride over their daughter's academic achievements, have instead carried the burden of her death, without justice, without peace. Her story is often revisited during discussions about unsolved crimes in China. Documentaries have been made. Online forums still discuss the case fervently. Even today, Chinese netizens occasionally revive the topic on social media, hoping that someone somewhere will remember something new. Despite police stating that the case remains open, no new information has emerged publicly since the early 2010s. The silence surrounding it now feels like part of the tragedy itself. A young woman's life was not only taken in the most inhuman of ways, but her memory was buried under an avalanche of bureaucratic dead ends and cultural reluctance to confront darkness. Some believe the case will never be solved, that Diao Aiqing will forever be a symbol of unanswered horror. But others cling to the hope that one day, science or fate or guilt will bring her killer into the light, and maybe, just maybe, Dia's spirit can rest.